part
So you
of
learned all this firsthand, everything that you talk about.
Yes,
You learned.
and
right.
of course from Roz, and also there's a lot of good possibility thinking in the world going on. It's not, and you talk about your course and the course of happiness and positive thinking and the forum and landmark and all those different disciplines are ways of exploring life in a new way, not in the old hierarchical stuck way, and in various ways. I remember when I did the landmark process called the 6-day, which is a 6-day course in all sorts of things that we did. And one day there was a rappelling down from a high down.
Yes.
It looked like a quarter of a mile down, and I was terrified. I'd never done anything like that. And the girl who was helping me with the rope and everything was about 14. And I said, I can't do that. I'm a conductor. And she said, thank you for sharing. It was so perfect, I was being an important conductor instead of being available to whatever experience.
So did you do it?
I did it.
You
yes.
did it?
Oh yeah, I
so,
did everything.
So
I did everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So shortly after my unexpected, when my ex-husband walked out, I actually, when I was on a business trip, I think somewhere in Arizona, I actually hired someone to take me rappelling because I thought that would totally break me out of a lot of molds.
Well, that's why they did.
So it was called White Knuckle Tour Guide,
right.
where I hired the tour guide from.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good exercise
Absolutely.
to do, to
All
really
those
take you
things.
outside of yourself.
Right, there were things like this going on everywhere, and everybody was trying to break out of the mold of the fixed hierarchical model in which they were brought up. So it was in the air. Roz's work as a psychotherapist,
Yes.
essentially breaking down all those patterns and those habits. And so I had the best coach I could have had, and it was a wonderfully creative time. It was thrilling, and then when I was fired from my job at the Union Conservatory, which was terribly unfortunate because it was all based on some silly misunderstanding, but it had nothing to do with me. But there I was, stuck without.
Right.
And then we had the idea to start a new youth orchestra, and suddenly
so
we could do this.
This happened because of that.
We could start from scratch with a completely new model of how an orchestra could function, and it was revelation, and it was exciting for everybody.
So out of bad came a very, 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 very good.
Very good. And there's a lovely story which I love to tell, which is the essential possibility story. My father, again, he had lots of stories which were possibility stories. He used to say, there's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothes. No, but the story was, the man goes to the rabbi. He says, Rabbi, you told something with a prayer, there was something with praise. And yes, the rabbi says, you're right. It goes like this: when you have good news, you thank the Lord. When you have bad news, you praise the Lord. Oh yes, Rabbi, that's right. Rabbi, how do you know which is the good news and which is the bad news? Rabbi says, you're wise, my son. So just to be on the safe side, always thank the Lord. The lovely story. Yeah. And so if you take that attitude, and it's a playful attitude, there's a lot of laughter, lots of laughter, but it's a different kind of laughter from what we hear when we watch the Seinfeld and those other programs. It's all that laughter, Curb Your Enthusiasm, it's always at the expense of somebody. Somebody is put down, somebody is made wrong. The laughter of possibility is just humorous, like the two old gentlemen sitting outside a pub in Vermont smoking their pipes. And one of them says, how's your wife? And there's a long pause. And the sun goes down and they puff on their pipes. And then finally the other one says, compared to what? that laughter is not putting anybody down. It's realizing that when you say, how's your wife, what really are you asking? It's not a medical report you want. Right? It's a greeting. It's a friendly, warm.
Right.
Yes, but we don't think well. We don't think carefully about language. I love the story that I was at Merrill Lynch talking to the top management of Merrill Lynch. And they asked me to sit in on a meeting that they were having to see how they were doing in terms of possibility thinking. And they were talking about how they could be the best in the world. They wanted to be number one. And then one of the vice presidents, who was a woman, which I think is not a coincidence, she said, why are we talking about how we can be the best in the world? Why can't we talk about how we can be the best for the world? Now that was a revelation. I saw the whole conversation totally shift at that moment as a result of a preposition.
That's very powerful for companies, because so many companies are trying to figure out their vision statements.
Well, vision, of course, has nothing to do with being the best. Vision is the trouble with the confusion about vision is they think it's about the prosperity, about winning and losing and success and failure. But vision is something that is for everyone. And the greatest leaders understood that. The greatest, Mandela and Gandhi and these people, they understood that a vision has to be for everyone. So everybody benefits. Otherwise it's not a vision if somebody's suffering.
Right. I love that, just a one change in that preposition.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so tiny, and yet it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And so I think our attention as leaders and as trainers should be on, could be on noticing the language that we use to tell us as teachers, but also as parents. Political leaders. If the political language has gone straight down the drain, people don't think anymore. They just want to find the weak spot in another person, catch them out.
Well, Friday night, I felt a lot of possibilities that have been created through your young people in the upcoming tour that you have, and then all the terrific corporate sponsors and all the terrific volunteers and other people who are helping. At I think a couple reunions ago, I had the opportunity to watch Professor Clay Christensen talk about his book, How Will I Measure My Life? And that's something that's been very powerful to me. And I thought about that on Friday night because I thought all the students, young people who you've impacted, and how it must. I was just thinking, like, there's so many people you've impacted about how you measure your life. So many people are struggling with how to do that. Like, how can they have impact, and how can they leave and have that something that they can look back at and be very happy. What advice do you have? And I guess by looking at the possibilities, but you've managed to do this with both the Boston Philharmonic and the Youth Orchestra. What advice would you have for people listening about how things that they might do?
Let me know just a couple of things. First of all, you talk about possibilities, and that's not the same as possibility.
Okay.
Right? Possibilities are options, and they can be numbered.
Okay.
You can have 4 possibilities or 18 possibilities, but it's limited. Possibility by its nature is not limited.
Oh, it's infinite.
It's a very important distinction. So the other thing you said, how do you measure the impact? Well, measurement comes in the downward spiral because we're measuring and comparing, constantly comparing. The downward spiral essentially is the place where we measure and compare. And somebody told me a wonderful story the other day, a happiness story. His two children. One of them had 1 lollipop, and she got a second lollipop. So she was very happy because now she had two lollipops. The other boy, her brother, had three lollipops and lost one of them. So it was down to two, and he was miserable because he lost a lollipop. Now, the entire exercise lived only in measurement. He was measuring his loss, she was measuring her gain. In true possibility world, there is no measurement. So I have a very simple way of knowing, and the answer is how many shining eyes are there. And so I don't actually look for anything else. Of course I'm interested in whether there's a good review, or whether I'm invited back, or all that stuff. But really all that matters is the shining eyes. And when I look around the orchestra, and I know that if the eyes are not shining, I can ask myself this question: who am I being that the eyes are not shining? And so then immediately it switches away from making them wrong to realizing there's something I'm doing here which is preventing the eyes from shining. Either I'm talking too much, or I'm putting somebody down, or I'm being too demanding, or whatever it is that is causing people to close down. That's something I can fix. And so I focus on the result is the shining eyes, and you can't go far wrong with that.
I love that.
And your
I'm
eyes
visualizing like the sigma and the infinite, the sideways, the n equals infinity. Right. So there's that's a really important distinction. Thanks for pointing that out.
And you can use it on him. You can use it on your children. Why are my children's eyes not shining? Well, they're under too much pressure. They are being forced to do something they don't really want to do. They're doing something to please their parents, not to please
They're extrinsically motivated.
They're doing it because they will get them into a better college, or whatever the reason is. I attack all those things and say the only thing that matters is that they're doing it with love and enthusiasm and engagement and energy, and the result is everybody has shining eyes. What could go wrong?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
And your eyes are shining.
Yes.
You see, and I suspect that the eyes behind that camera are shining too. That's what I don't suspect, I know it. Because people actually love possibility. Everybody loves possibility. So our job is to plug into possibility. It's like an electric plug.